Well, hello again, all my favorite entrepreneurs, and welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs 2021. Who would have thought we would have got here, but we did, and it's going to be a great year. And I say that truly because we are going to have as my co-host one of the world's great optimists, the fabulous Marc Z. Welcome back, Marc.
Thanks, Jeff. Happy and healthy New Year to you and your family. Great to be here. Great to start off 2021 with you, and so glad we can leave 2020 behind us.
Well, the one good thing starting this year versus last year on the show, Marc, we're both more casually dressed.
That's true.
You dropped the suit.
Well, I'm adapting, you know.
Well, and I want to welcome our guest. I know someone you like a lot, Jeff Cymrot, founding partner Sassoon and Cymrot. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. And, tell us about the firm.
Tell you about the firm. We are a medium-sized firm located in Boston, but serving Massachusetts and other New England states in a variety of legal skills and areas. We specialize in transactions, commercial transactions, buying and selling businesses, residential transactions, buying and selling houses, yes, construction law, tax, probate, estates. We do litigation related to all these areas, and I do bankruptcy. So we are basically a business law firm.
Well, you seem to be covering all the buttons of a law firm in this economy. I'm sure it's been a big adjustment for you during these times.
Yes, well, sure. This is oddly enough, we have been quite busy. Parts of the economy are continuing to roll along, and we respond. People are buying and selling businesses. People are taking bank loans. I should mention that we also do a fair amount of work representing banks. Some banks out in your area in Worcester, but we have been busy. Yes, we've been adding lawyers, which is a good sign, and we're prepared to grow.
Jeffrey Davis and Jeff Cymrot. First of all, Jeff Cymrot, I think that it's great that your firm has been so proactive even during the pandemic, and you really have diverse practice areas that help clients. But one of the big areas that you specialize in is bankruptcy. And there were a lot of changes going on last year when you had some companies thinking about having a business bankruptcy, going through that step, and then obviously other the states and the federal government discussing evictions, and your practice is sort of front and center of that as we enter 2020, and there's a lot going on, especially when a lot of firms and companies don't know what the future is. Can you tell us more about your practice and how you're getting ahead of it for the new year?
Yes, sure. Bankruptcy, I've been practicing bankruptcy for about 25 years. Bankruptcy is something that happens at the end of a business's life. It's a way to put to sleep or to wind up the affairs of a business. And what I have found this past year is first, there have been some important legislative changes. Chapter 11 was amended, effective, I think, in the spring, so that the climate is now slightly more favorable for small businesses to reorganize. It's slightly easier. I could go through the details, but it would probably put your listeners to sleep.
Not me.
But I think what's important for you, for the audience in general to understand is that bankruptcy is not something that happens just like that, snap of a finger. There are certain signs that any businessman will or woman will notice in terms of difficulty meeting payroll, difficulty making your bank loans, reductions, sudden or otherwise, in revenue, times getting tighter. And bankruptcy is designed to deal with situations in which, A, you want to close up the business, close up the business's affairs. And there are complications. What are complications? Well, basically, you can't afford to close up the business's affairs because you can't pay everybody. If you could pay everybody, you wouldn't need to file bankruptcy.
Right.
But if you can't, then you got to think about it.
Right.
Or if you've guaranteed the business, which is a separate entity, then you got to think about a bankruptcy. And the other reason to think about a bankruptcy is that you have a valuable asset, which you just don't want to see released into the ether. And an example that I can think of, I'll give you two examples. The first example is a valuable lease. Let's say you have a lease, which is a long-term lease at below market rates, and you know that lease is valuable, if not to you as the lessee, then to the renter, then to some other renter in some other situation. There may be a situation in which you want to consider a bankruptcy, winding up the affairs of the business with an attempt to take away the lease, perhaps for another use. And the second example, and this happens all the time, a lot in Massachusetts, that's IP, intellectual property, patents or software, licenses or things of that sort, can be very valuable in their own regard, or they could be in development and also valuable. Either way, you run into situations where it's difficult for a buyer, for a business owner to get from point A, which is having a piece of intellectual property in development, to point B, which is to finish that intellectual property and essentially market it or have it taken advantage of, have it licensed. And that's where a bankruptcy can be, has been quite usual, because intellectual property is just that. It's property, and it can have value.
Right.
So
Jeff, let me just also
interrupt me. Go ahead.
Interrupt you because I'm fascinated. You're literally one of the best in this field, and one of the things that I'm curious about is, what are you advising like restaurant owners and hospitality and travel related industries that are like trying to like look at 2020 when we don't have a broad view yet, except for the vaccine,
Can I refine that question a little bit, Mark, if you don't mind? You can say please or no after I ask it, but you're very sweet. What if there's a restaurant that, let's say, was a chapter 7? Can you reverse it and come out of chapter 7 back into chapter 11?
Well, there is such a thing as amending your petition so that you can go from chapter 7, which is a liquidation, to chapter 11, which is a reorganization. That's possible. The code provides for it, the bankruptcy code. But let me talk a little bit about restaurants, because they're an interesting case. I've received several calls over the past 6 months in which a desperate restaurateur gets on the phone and says, "Oh my God, nobody's coming into my place. Nobody. I can't operate." So I ask a couple of questions. Do you have a lease on your space? Oh, yeah. We got a lease. Did you guarantee the lease? Now, if the answer to that is no, then you ask then the point is, what is the damage to the restaurateur of closing up the business and walking away? Now, obviously, there's damage to the landlord, but the landlord didn't call me. The restaurateur did. So if I represent the restaurateur and his interests, I'm going to say, what's the damage to you? If there's no guarantee, what is the damage? Now, often there is a guarantee in small businesses. Guarantees will arise from the bank that helped you buy the equipment, or the equipment's broker or seller. When I say equipment, I mean the ovens and the, who knows what. And there often are, in the case of restaurants, vendors will give you credit. But the inventory of a restaurant is in many cases worthless, or it becomes worthless over time. I mean, how long can you have, fresh greens? Stay fresh. Not very long. So the restaurant is an interesting case. Where you might get more interesting cases is a series of franchises of a restaurant. Then you begin to have, rights. Some of them are intellectual property rights, the right to franchise, or the right of franchise. You deal with franchisees. They may have value. And in that case, there may be justification for doing a Chapter 11, as Jeff said, for saying, "Oh no, wait a second, I don't want to liquidate this business because there's value, and I want to see if we can take advantage of that value." Or, from the general point of view, other people might, from the law's point of view, the question is to preserve that value. Not necessarily for the owner, but for a buyer. And in fact, I've been in situations in which, in small businesses, in which a sale of the valuable asset actually reduces the liability under a personal guarantee. So that if you sell the business effectively, you reduce the amount of debt, or maybe eliminate it, that the owner must pay. And that's a win.
We're going to have to, there's so much content, and we do appreciate it, Jeff. And, we've come to the end of this segment, and I want to ask you, and then I'll ask Marc Z, if someone needs to speak with you, clearly you're an expert in these areas, Marc was correct. If someone wants to find you or the firm, how would they do that?
Well, you can email me at jcymrot, first initial J, Cymrot, at Sassoon, Sassoon, Cymrot.com.
Very good. Mark Z, someone looking for you 2021, how would they find you?
Well, first of all, you can just Google Marc Z, M-A-R-C, and the letter Z. We come up, or marczlegal.com, marczlegal.com, or 617-338-1300.
I want to thank you both for being on Radio Entrepreneurs, and remind everybody we're going to have lots of stories 2021. Jeff, we hope to see you again. Mark Z, we know we're going to see you almost every week.
Okay,
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff, for being on the show.
Thank you. We're going to take a
Thanks,
break.
Eric.
We'll be right back after this short break.